Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I would love to share with you one of my studies on sleep disorders of service users of elder care in Hong Kong. Now, in Hong Kong, we have a well-high institutionalization rate in Hong Kong. About 7% of older people aged 60 and 65 and above live in different kinds of residential care homes. And at the same time, we also have a wide range of community services, center-based services, that older people would go in the daytime for, say, social and recreational services, as well as for services, personal care such as canteen services or daycare services. Now, so this study is to examine the sleep condition, quality of sleep of service users of both the community care services and the residential care services in Hong Kong. As most of you may have known, sleep problem increases with age. Older people have a tendency of having more sleep problems, and this sleep problem may constitute one of the most difficult afflictions in later life. The sleep disorders, the sleep problems, may cause a lot of negative impacts, including daytime dysfunction, well-being, negative impact on the interpersonal relationship, as well as even survival. People may be so depressed to the state that they may think of suicidal ideation. A very common sleep problem is insomnia, which means that the person have difficulty to initiate sleep, takes long to sleep, to maintain sleep, and they have early morning awakening. There are many reasons for the cause of sleep problems in life, including sleep disorders such as sleep apnea. Maybe they have physical illnesses and medications such as chronic infections and sleep allergy. And some of them may suffer from emotional problems such as anxiety and distress. And lifestyle also constitutes important cause, such as too much coffee and decreased activity level, which is very common among older people who are frail and senile. They don't want to move a lot. And there are environmental factors, such as having noises and if the environment is overcrowded, as in residential care homes. And then a very important cause for sleep problems in late life is depression. And it is found that older depressed adults have more disturbed sleep than do younger depressed adults. Now, the study I'm going to report to you use the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index, a very popular common used measure on sleep quality. It consists of 19 items, which is a self-report scale. And the 19 items can be categorized into 7 components, including subjective sleep quality, sleep latency, meaning that how long it takes to go to sleep, sleep duration, habitual sleep efficiency, meaning that the number of hours that the person falls asleep over the number of hours lying on the bed. So that's sleep efficiency. Sleep disturbances, feeling unwell or having to go up to the toilet, coughing, sleep medication, whether they are taking pills to in connection with the sleep problems, and then daytime dysfunction, having no energy in the daytime. And each item ranges, in terms of the response format, ranges from 0 to 3. The higher the score, the more serious the sleep problems. So the total PSQI score ranges from 0 to 21. Higher scores reflect poorer sleep quality. Now there's the PSQI has very good psychometric properties, and the developer Baisi and his colleagues has recommended a cutting score of more than 5, meaning that people having score more than 5 would indicate poor sleep quality. And but then other studies recommend other cutting score ranging from 5 to 8. And the developers also suggested the whole 19 items should be taken as one single factor structure. Now, in Hong Kong, let's look at the situation. In terms of studies on sleep problems, we don't have a lot of studies. The first one was held in 1999, which was on about 1,000 older people aged 70 and about in Sha Tin, which is one of the relatively rural area in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is highly urbanized, but then we still have an area we call New Territories, which is on the northern part of Hong Kong, adjacent the border to mainland China. You may know that Hong Kong belongs to mainland China, but then because we are historically a colony of UK, Britain, so there's a border. And people from mainland China could not easily enter Hong Kong unless they have a special permit. So Hong Kong is called a special administrative region in Hong Kong. We have our own law and our own systems in a lot of economic and political systems. And from this study, it's found that 75% of the participants have sleep disturbances and 38 have insomnia. And then another study was held in 2002, but then it was not on older people. The respondents ranged from age 18 to 65. Here, the percentage suffering from insomnia was relatively lower, is about 12%. So it seems that from these two studies, actually the older people have a higher percentage in having insomnia. Now, for my study. Why do I want to carry this study? You see, the local studies usually use self-developed questionnaires to measure the sleep problems. No validated tools were used. And then the older people aged between 60 to 70, which constitute the majority portion of older people in Hong Kong, were not well studied. Now, the objectives of my study is first, to examine to validate the PSQI among Chinese older people, and then to find out the situation of sleep problems of the service users or Eldercare, and then finally to identify factors associated with sleep problems. This is a quantitative study carried out in the year 2005-2006. We have a sample frame of about 1,000 service users from 8 community centers, and then 347 older people living in 4 residential care homes of the largest NGO in Hong Kong. The participants were randomly selected from each of the service units, and face-to-face interviews were carried out by trained undergraduates studying psychology and social work. Finally, 487 participants aged 60 and above were successfully interviewed. Among them, women were overrepresented, 65%, and they were mostly aged 70 and above. But half of them were married, and by default, 3/4 of them were receiving community care, and then 1/4 were receiving residential care. And the education level tend to be low. Half of them were illiterate. Now, we translated the PSQI into Cantonese. In Hong Kong, we don't speak Putonghua as in mainland China. We have our own dialect, which is called Cantonese. So the scale, PSQI, was translated into the Cantonese version of PSQI. And we use the Chinese version of the geriatric depression scale, the short form 15 items, as a way to measure the convergent validity of the CPSQI. And we also develop other scales to measure financial inadequacy, perceived health status, self-reported insomnia, and then the demographic characteristics as control variables. One of the objectives is to find out whether the scale fall into one factor model or two or three factors model among Chinese elders. When we conducted the confirmatory factor analysis into one factor model, two factor model, and three factor model, we found that the one factor model has very poor fit. Two factor and three factor model have good fit, but then when we look more carefully, the three factor model was not acceptable because there's a very high correlation between one factor, which is the sleep quality, and another factor, which is daily disturbances factor. So as a result, the two factor model was seen as a more viable factor among these Chinese respondents. Now, this two factor model fall into two factors. The first one is sleep efficiency, which consists of sleep duration and habitual sleep efficiency. And then the sleep quality consists of the others: subjective sleep quality, sleep latency, disturbances, and whether they're taking medication, and then whether they have a dysfunction in the daytime. The reliabilities of the whole scale and the two factors were satisfactory, and we tried to find out the cutoff point, and we found that if we use 8, more than 8, instead of 5, then about 51.5 of our respondents have sleep problems. Now, among the respondents, we noticed that 35 of them self-reported to have insomnia, which is actually was lower than the 50% if we use the cutoff point of more than 8. Among those who self-reported to have insomnia, we are concerned to find that about 50%, nearly 50%, had insomnia for more than a year, and 55 of them did not ever seek help, even though they have it for some time. And then 15% of them could not find any suitable people or resources to help, even if they wanted to. Now, we look at the multiple regression analysis to find out the predicting factors. As you can see from here, gender, women have a high, was a predicting factor, and then high age also was associated with a high level of sleep problems. And then we also look at the other independent variables, and it is found that being institutionalized, meaning that if they are living in aged care homes, predicted higher sleep problems, and self-reported insomnia also. And other factors include perceived health. The lower perceived health was associated with sleep problems. So was perceived financial adequacy did not have any impact. But then the geriatric depression scale was predictive of sleep problems. So from the whole study, it is found that the Cantonese version of PSQI actually showed satisfactory reliability and validity, and so is recommended for use among Chinese older people. And our studies also give support to a structure of 2 correlated factors, not just one. And in terms of the cutoff score, it seems that 5, as recommended by the developer, may not be the best cutoff score. Maybe more than 8 would be a more relevant cutoff score for older people. And we'll now talk about the other important findings from the study. First, we find that institutionalized older people, those living in aged care homes, have higher sleep problems. And I think this is actually easier to understand. Well, in aged care homes, because Hong Kong is very urbanized, we have a very high density of population in Hong Kong, and usually the living area per person is low. So if an older person lives in an aged care home, very often they will have to share the same room with 5 to 7 other older people. So it would be very crowded, and there would be lack of privacy and also noises and disturbances that may account for the fact that being admitted in aged care home was found to be a very significant predicting factor for sleep problems. Of course, another way is in Chinese culture, even older persons have to live in an aged care homes instead of in their own domestic home. It would imply that their younger generation, their children, their adult children, are not willing to or able to take care of them. And that would mean a kind of parental failure or a loss of or a reduction in filial piety. Thus, maybe some psychological factors leading to a sense of frustration. And in terms of other factors predating sleep problems, they are understandable and are in line with current literature that include poor perceived health, depression, but we are very concerned to take note of the low level of HAP sleep pain because more than half of them who self-reported to have sleep problems and insomnia never sought help, and some of them could not find help. So in terms of recommendation for future research, we find that there's a need to examine the dynamics and the mechanism between the institutionalization and poor sleep quality in order to find out ways to reduce, to promote sleep quality among older people living in institutional settings. And we are also concerned to find out the low level of HAP sleep pain and to find out what may be a more appropriate cutoff score of the PSQI for Chinese elders. In terms of the social implication, we find that our study confirmed the Cantonese version of PSQI is recommended for use as initial screening for sleep problems among Chinese older people. At the same time, we need to carry out more community education activities in order to let people know about the causes, symptoms, and intervention for people with sleep problems. Actually, in Hong Kong, people with sleep problems have to seek help at psychiatric clinics. And the fact that you have to go to psychiatric clinics means that you are mentally ill. And mentally ill in traditional culture means that you are crazy. And so people have a rather great reservation about using any services that are related with mental health. So that's the end of my presentation.